My brother said his Christmas presents were trash he didn't want, so my parents sold them in front of him and made him cry. Then, as a cherry on top, told him he was getting sent away to a teen correctional facility. He did not take it well. My brother was 6 years old when he first tried to bite a chunk out of Dad's wrists, all because Dad said no to the candy bar he wanted. This wasn't his first meltdown either. He was diagnosed with conduct disorder at 4 years old, so for his entire childhood, my parents always gave him whatever he wanted, just so he wouldn't be violent. They let him pick every single family meal, movie night, and vacation spot. Everything was exactly his way. It was strange watching my parents be scared of a 9-year-old boy, but that's how we lived for years. Then they decided to finally stand up to him when he was 13. My brother said he had to have a $1,200 gaming computer, not because he liked video games, but because his friend got one. My mom explained they couldn't afford it, so he took her grandmother's quilt and ripped it apart with his bare hands. My mom was crushed, but instead of giving in, she stayed strong. That's when my brother changed his plan. He looked my dad straight in the face and said if they didn't buy him what he wanted, he'd tell his teacher they hit him. My parents went white. The next 7 months were hell. My parents tried to keep him happy without giving in all the time. They'd buy him some stuff, but not everything. Of course, it wasn't enough for him. He finally made good on his threat when our parents took us camping at a not-alike campground than the one he wanted. I remember coming home 3 weeks later to find a social worker in our kitchen, taking pictures of our medicine cabinet and first aid kit. My brother sat on the sofa with fake bruises drawn on his arms, while the worker asked questions. The case lasted 3 weeks. The worker found costly gaming gear in my brother's room, and saw how he kept changing his story about when he said he was hurt. The case was closed with a note that said his story kept changing, but the damage was already done. This all built up to my birthday morning this past year. I had asked my parents for new headphones since mine were broken and barely worked. My brother told our parents to blow his mind and nothing else, and so they did. When my birthday morning came, I opened a pair of Beats headphones plus a few small things like candy and a wallet, but then it was my brother's turn. He got a designer watch, Nike shoes, the gaming chair he'd been talking about for months, and even a fancy drawing tablet. Yet each time he opened something, he'd snort and throw it aside like it was junk. After all the gifts were opened, he didn't even say thanks. He just went to his room and came back 30 minutes later with his phone calculator open. He'd looked up every single price and added them up. Then he looked up my headphones price. His total was $90 less than mine. He stood there screaming about how this was proof he was the forgotten kid in this family, and I was the favorite child who always gets everything. He had the guts to go into the dining room while Dad was making birthday breakfast. He tried to grab the credit card out of Dad's wallet to buy $90 worth of stuff online to make it even. My parents, who by this point were fully done with him, told him no. Dad told my brother he wasn't getting any money and there would be trouble if he tried. Well, my brother's face went bright red. He yelled that his presents were mainly garbage that he didn't want anyway. Before anyone could stop him, he grabbed my new headphones off the kitchen counter and smashed them against the floor like a hammer. Pieces flew everywhere. The room went quiet. My mom stood up not fast. She's a small woman and a former police officer who never loses her cool. When she shouted his name, I swear the windows rattled. It was the first time I ever saw him scared of getting in trouble. He ran to his room and locked the door. I picked up the pieces of my headphones, almost crying, while my parents began talking quietly in the dining room. About an hour later, they came out with serious looks on their faces. They went to where my brother's presents were still scattered on the kitchen floor and started picking them up. I asked them what they were doing, and they said what they should have done years ago. Before I even knew what was happening, they were posting all of the items on Craigslist. Within 4 hours, everything was sold. The watch went right away. Someone drove 2 hours for the shoes. They'd made back every dollar plus some extra. My brother was still in his room, so they called him out. He came out holding a baseball bat, which my mom made him drop by grabbing his wrists and taking it. This happened in the hallway, meaning he was already mad. And that's when he walked into the kitchen. He saw that his presents were gone, and there was a pile of cash on the counter. But there was also one more thing. A website on the laptop screen. Wilderness Program for Troubled Teens. What the hell is Shut Up and Listen? Mom cut him off. This is where you'll be going for the next 4 months starting next week. My brother's face went gray, and this pile of cash on the counter is to replace the headphones you broke. Now pick it up, hand it to your sister. Get upstairs and don't come down until you're called. Brother stared at the pile of cash, then at the laptop screen, then back at Mom. His hands were shaking, but not from fear anymore. Something else flickered across his face. Something I'd never seen before. Calculation. He picked up the money, slowly counting each bill. $240. He walked over to me, held it out, but when I reached for it, he let the bills scatter across the floor. Oops, he said flatly. Dad moved toward him, but Mom held up her hand. She was watching Brother carefully like she used to watch Suspects. Brother bent down, gathered the money again, and this time actually handed it to me. But as he turned to go upstairs, he said something under his breath that made my blood run cold. Phase 2. It is. I counted the cash with trembling fingers, while Brother's footsteps echoed up the stairs. Through the ceiling, we heard his door slam, then the scraping of furniture being moved. Mom pulled out her phone and started recording. What are you doing? Dad asked. Getting ready, she said. Hez going to threaten to hurt himself. It's the next move in his playbook. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, Brother appeared at the top of the stairs. He'll hurt myself and blame you, he announced loud enough for the phone to pick up clearly. He'll tell them you drove me to it. Mom held up her phone showing him the recording light. Already documenting everything, sweetheart. We've been preparing for this conversation. His face twisted with rage. He grabbed a glass from the hallway table and hurled it at the wall. It exploded in a shower of shards. I threw my arms up to shield my face, but not fast enough. A piece sliced across my forearm, leaving a thin red line that immediately started bleeding. Brother's eyes widened. That wasn't supposed to happen. He'd meant to scare us, not actually hurt anyone, but there I was, blood dripping onto the kitchen floor, actual evidence of his violence. You orchestrated this, he said, pointing at me. His voice was eerily calm now. The headphones. You knew it'd react. You set me up. I opened my mouth to deny it, but the words stuck in my throat, because maybe I had hoped something like this would happen. Not the injury, but the final straw that would make my parents act. They noticed my hesitation. Go clean that cut, Mom said quietly. Your father will help you. While Dad helped me bandage my arm in the bathroom, we heard Mom's voice steady and firm. 1 hour. Pack what you need for 4 months. Your father will sit outside your door. You can't do this, Brother screamed. He'll call CPS. He'll tell them everything. Go ahead, Mom replied. We have documentation of everything, including what just happened. Dad finished wrapping my arm and positioned himself in the hallway outside Brother's room. Through the door crack, I saw Brother hunched over his phone, texting frantically. Then he made a call, speaking in whispers. All I caught was phase 2 again, and something about backup plan. 20 minutes into his packing time, our doorbell rang. It was our cousin Jake, my aunt's son, who lived across town. He was 17, 2 years older than Brother, and they'd always been close. My mom sent me, Jake said, looking concerned. She heard screaming on the phone when she called earlier, said it sounded like someone was being hurt. Of course, Brother had called our aunt while Mom was on the phone with her, making sure she heard his yells in the background, Mom explained the situation calmly, showing Jake the Wilderness Program website, explaining about the broken headphones and the years of manipulation. But while they talked, I noticed something. Brother's window was open, the one that led onto the roof. "Hez outside," I said, pointing. Sure enough, Brother had climbed out onto the roof, just like he'd done during past meltdowns. He sat on the edge, legs dangling, playing the victim for any neighbors who might be watching. It took 40 minutes of coaxing to get him down. Dad had to climb out after him, while Mom called the Wilderness Program to warn them about escape risks. When Brother finally came back inside, he walked past me and whispered, "You'll regret this." The transport team arrived right on time. 2 counselors trained in de-escalation, a man and a woman, both calm and professional. Brother's entire demeanor shifted. Suddenly he was cooperative, charming, even shaking their hands and introducing himself politely. While my parents filled out paperwork in the dining room, I slipped into Brother's room. Head left it a mess, clothes everywhere, drawers pulled out, but on his desk I found something that made my stomach drop. Sticky notes, dozens of them with names written in his neat handwriting. Mom, Dad, me, Grandma, Aunt Sarah, Jake. Under each name were bullet points, pressure points. He'd labeled them. Under Mom, guilt about working late during elementary school. Grandma's quilt, fear of being bad mother. Under Dad, drinking problem in college, laid off twice, hates disappointing people. Under me, jealous of attention, I get wants parents' approval. Broke her laptop accidentally, she suspects he'd been studying us like lab rats, documenting our weaknesses. I grabbed the notes and brought them to Mom. Her face went pale as she read them. "Has been planning this for years," she whispered. As the counselors led Brother to their van, he made sure to speak loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. "I forgive you for making Mom and Dad send me away," he called to me, his voice dripping with false sincerity. "I know you didn't mean to turn them against me." Mrs. Chen from next door was watering her plants. She looked over with concern. Brother gave her a sad wave, playing the part perfectly. The van pulled away, and for a moment we all just stood there in the driveway. 4 months. We had 4 months of peace ahead of us, or so we thought. 3 days later, Jake posted on social media a long emotional post about how his cousin had been sent away for having mental health issues and how some families just can't handle kids who are different. He tagged our entire extended family. My phone buzzed with messages immediately. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't talked to in years, all asking variations of the same question. Why couldn't you just get along with him? Someone had dug up old Christmas photos, the ones where Brother and I looked happy together, and shared them in the comments. "They used to be so close," one aunt wrote. What happened? Mom discovered the extent of the damage when she called her sister. "Has been calling me Aunt Sarah," admitted. "The program allows weekly phone calls. He told me you're medicating him against his will, that you're trying to change who he is." "That's not true," Mom said, but I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. "He said you sold all his birthday presents to pay for the program because you spent all your money on her," meaning me. At work the next day, I had a part-time job at the mall. My manager pulled me aside. "Hey, just wanted to let you know someone called asking about you. They wanted to know if you had violence issues like your brother." I told them we don't discuss employees, but I thought you should know. The caller had been concerned, apparently. They'd mentioned knowing our family and worrying about my stability given our family situation. That evening, Dad got an email from HR. An anonymous wellness check request had been submitted regarding his home situation. Nothing threatening, the email assured him, just concerning enough that they wanted to make sure he had access to the company's employee assistance program. The complaint used all the right therapy language: toxic home environment, emotional dysregulation, safety concerns. I tried to defend us on social media to explain what really happened, but in my frustration I mentioned the CPS investigation from last year. That only made things worse. Now we looked like a family with a history of problems, parents who'd already been investigated once. A girl from school, Mika, started commenting on every family photo on my Instagram. "Where's your brother?" she'd ask. "Why isn't he in recent pics?" I'd never talked to Mika before. She was a senior about to graduate, but suddenly she was very interested in our family. Mom found a post in a local Facebook group for parents. "Does anyone know about the family who sent their special needs child away to a wilderness camp?" The post author had joined the group just the day before. "I'm concerned about the situation, but don't want to overstep." The comments were brutal. People who didn't know us were debating whether we were abusive parents, whether someone should call CPS again, whether the poor boy was safe. Mom's hands shook as she showed me the screen. The Wilderness Program called that week with an update. Brother was following all the rules, participating in therapy, being a model resident, but he was telling other kids he was there because his sister had framed him for violence he didn't commit. "Has very convincing," the counselor admitted. Some of the other residents have started a petition to have his case reviewed. Emma, my best friend since middle school, seemed uncomfortable at lunch the next day. Finally, she admitted her mom had heard things at book club. "She's worried about your family situation." Emma said, "She thinks maybe you guys need help." That evening, my parents discovered $200 missing from Dad's wallet. The credit cards were all there, just the cash gone. But when they checked the statements online, they found charges for gift cards, small amounts spread across different stores. Brother had memorized the card numbers before leaving. The gift cards had been sent electronically to 2 email addresses. One belonged to Jake, the other to Mika. "Payment for services," Dad said grimly. "He's paying them to help him." Mom looked at the Wilderness Program website again. 6 weeks, she said to Dad. "We just need to hold on for 6 more weeks until the first family session. Then we can show the therapists what's really happening." But I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes. 6 weeks suddenly seemed like a very long time. Mika started showing up at my workplace during every break. She'd browse the racks near the register, always filming herself, trying on accessories while asking innocent-sounding questions. "Your brother must miss you," she'd say, angling her phone to catch my response. "When's the last time you talked to him?" I kept my answers short, but she was persistent. She'd mention how hard it must be for families dealing with special needs, children always recording from that perfect angle that made her look concerned, and me look defensive. My manager noticed the pattern after the 3rd visit. He pulled the security footage and saw how she always positioned herself to film our interactions. When he banned her from the store, she posted about the hostile work environment that wouldn't let her shop in peace. That same week, my phone started buzzing with texts from unknown numbers. Photos of my old diary pages, ones I'd written when I was 12 or 13. Normal teenage frustrations about brother getting all the attention, about feeling invisible in my own home. Reading them now out of context, they sounded cruel. Had I really been that resentful of someone with a diagnosed condition? The school counselor called me in for a check-in meeting. She mentioned I seemed stressed lately, suggested family therapy might help. The phrases she used, family dynamics, sibling adjustment, emotional regulation, echoed the exact words from brother's texts to our relatives. He was putting his words in everyone's mouths. Mom's former co-workers started avoiding her at the grocery store. Someone had shared her workers' compensation file online, showing the PTSD diagnosis from when she'd been injured on the job years ago. The post questioned whether someone with documented mental health issues should be making decisions about a child's medical care. Jake's parents filed a formal complaint with the Wilderness Program. Their letter cited family family manipulation, and medical kidnapping, demanding brother's immediate release. The program had to launch an investigation interviewing brother again about his treatment at home. I created a fake Instagram account to follow Mika. What I found made my skin crawl. She was 19, brother was 15. Her posts showed a pattern always with younger boys, always talking about saving them from their families. She'd been discussing plans to let brother stay with her when he got back, mentioning she had a spare room ready. Through that fake account, I screenshotted everything. Her conversations with other girls about their toxic families, her collection of troubled young boyfriends. But when I showed my parents, they looked defeated. More evidence meant nothing if no one believed us. Emma's older sister Jess cornered me after school. She'd been talking to Jake, believed every word about our toxic family. When I tried to explain, she just shook her head. Jake showed me the texts. She said, "How you've always been jealous of your brother." I lost it. I confronted Jake in the school parking lot, demanding he stop spreading lies. He was ready for me. His phone was already recording when I approached. He edited the video to show only my anger, posting it with the caption, "This is what happens when you try to help family." The edited version made me look unhinged. The wilderness program extended. Brothers stay by 2 weeks due to adjustment issues. It bought us time, but the damage kept spreading. 3 family friends canceled dinner plans that week, all citing scheduling conflicts. Our Thanksgiving invitation from Dad's sister was quietly withdrawn. My favorite teacher pulled me aside after class. She suggested I might want to focus on family instead of my honor society activities. Just until things settled down, she said, her voice full of that practiced concern that wasn't really concern at all. During brother's weekly call home, his offer was simple. Tell them I'm better and he'll stop having people check on you. Mom recorded the call, but what good was evidence when everyone had already chosen sides? Dad found muddy footprints outside my bedroom window. Someone had been standing in the flower bed watching the house. We installed security cameras that night, but the damage to our peace of mind was already done. The program therapist called with a revelation that should have helped, but only made things worse. Brother had been journaling about his campaigns since elementary school. Detailed plans for manipulating classmates, teachers, even family members. The therapist was disturbed by the calculated nature of the entries. The journal showed how brother identified lonely kids like Jake, grooming them with calculated kindness until they were loyal. Every person now supporting him had received his version of events, first been primed to distrust us. Years of reputation damage documented in his own handwriting. Dad's brother Marcus called from 2 hours away. Jake had contacted him with evidence of abuse, screenshots of texts taken out of context, photos of brother looking sad. Marcus drove down to check on us, saw the reality of our exhaustion and fear, but the damage was done. If Jake was contacting extended family that far away, who else had brother mapped out? I started documenting everything like brother did. Every interaction, every strange look, every canceled plan. I felt my personality changing, becoming hypervigilant and paranoid. Was this how brother saw the world all the time? At work, I played Mika's recorded harassment for my manager. He supported me banning her from the store and warning other employees. But he also cautioned me about recording people without consent. Even defending ourselves had legal risks. Jake's ex-girlfriend Rachel reached out through Instagram. She'd changed schools after Jake spread lies about her cheating when she tried to break up with him. We compared notes. Brother had taught Jake his methods created a multiplying effect of manipulation. The financial strain was crushing us. $8,000 a month for the program, plus therapy bills, security upgrades, and legal consultations. Mom started looking for a second job, while Dad's blood pressure medication doubled. When Dad confronted Jake's parents with evidence of their son's lies, they refused to believe their good boy could be involved in harassment. They threatened to call the police if we contacted them again. Dad's company suggested he take personal time to handle family issues. It wasn't a firing, but it was effectively a demotion. His projects were reassigned, his advancement opportunities evaporating with corporate concern about his home situation. I sat alone in the cafeteria, my usual table empty. Friends weren't avoiding me exactly, but they weren't seeking me out either. Brother was destroying our lives from 1,000 miles away, and he wasn't even trying hard. The therapist called with wonderful news. Brother had earned a supervised home visit for exceptional progress. He'd been participating in group therapy, taking accountability, showing genuine remorse. The therapist seemed proud of his breakthrough. We knew better. This was just another performance, another manipulation. But how could we explain that to professionals who'd been trained to look for improvement, to believe in redemption? I followed Mika one afternoon, keeping my distance. She met with a group of younger teens at a coffee shop, all sharing stories about their toxic families. She positioned herself as a mentor, someone who understood their pain. It was a grooming network operating in plain sight. When I reported this to the police, they said without evidence of actual crimes, it was just concerning but legal friendship between adults and minors. Mika was careful, staying just within the law while building her collection of vulnerable kids. Brother called during his approved phone time. His voice was different, confident, almost amused. "How does it feel to see how easily people believe me over you?" he asked. "To know that everything you say just makes you look worse." Even our family therapist started wavering. She suggested we might be overreacting to typical teen behavior, that our hypervigilance could be making things worse. We watched her professional certainty erode under brother's careful manipulation. To prove the pattern of behavior, I finally told my parents about the neighborhood cats, how I'd seen brother hurt them but never said anything, too scared of what he'd do. If I told my parents, horror at my silence created a new rift between us. "How could you not tell us?" Mom asked, her voice breaking. The program assessment came back glowing. Brother was taking accountability and showing empathy. They recommended transitioning to outpatient therapy, praising his remarkable progress. The insurance company saw this as an opportunity to cut costs. We got the letter on a Tuesday. Insurance coverage denied for continued residential treatment. We had 30 days to bring brother home or pay the full amount ourselves. $8,000 a month impossible on Dad's reduced salary and Mom's single income. During a family therapy session, brother's true goal finally emerged. He wanted legal emancipation to live with Mika for his mental health. The therapist thought it might be worth exploring given the family tension. That's when we understood this had always been about the money. Brother's portion of grandma's inheritance, $15,000 held in trust until he turned 18. With emancipation, he could access it immediately. Mika's interest suddenly made perfect sense. I made a decision that went against every instinct. I told my parents I was tired of fighting, that I just wanted peace. I'd support brother's emancipation if it meant ending this war. My parents looked at me like it betrayed them, but I needed brother to believe it'd switched sides. Playing the conflicted sister, I helped Jake write a support letter for brother's emancipation. While he typed about our dysfunctional family, I screenshotted his admissions about lying about brother promising him money. Jake was too confident to be careful. Mom discovered my plan when she found the screenshots on my phone. The trust between us cracked. "How do I know when you're being real?" she asked, and I couldn't answer. How could any of us know what was real anymore? I got Jake to admit brother had promised him $2,000 from the inheritance. inheritance. But when I showed his parents, they dismissed it as joking around between cousins. Evidence meant nothing without belief, and brother had poisoned that well thoroughly. During our next call, brother revealed he'd expected my fake support all along. I knew you'd try to play me, he said, sounding almost proud. That's what I'm counting on. Every move you make just proves how manipulative our family is. With 2 weeks until brother's return, the house felt like a prison. We installed locks on bedroom doors, scheduled bathroom times to avoid confrontation, ate meals in shifts. Mom's old injury from her police days flared up from stress. Dad's blood pressure spiked so high, he ended up in the emergency room. Mrs. Chen mentioned how brother had always seemed such a polite boy when he helped with her groceries. The facade he'd maintained with neighbors made our truth seem impossible. How could such a helpful child be what we claimed? Jake's parents threatened harassment charges if we contacted them again. Rachel was too traumatized to testify about Jake's behavior. Mika filed a restraining order claiming he'd been stalking her. Our allies had become weapons against us. The legal consultation drained our savings. The lawyer explained that brother's documented improvement at the wilderness program would work against us in any emancipation hearing. Courts favored keeping families together, especially when the child showed progress. Searching brother's old hiding spots, I found a USB drive wrapped in plastic. It contained recordings of family arguments spanning years, fights he'd provoked, then secretly recorded, our worst moments captured and stored like ammunition. The USB revealed he'd recorded our parents discussing divorce during his worst years. Mom crying about feeling like a failure. Dad admitting he sometimes wished brother had never been born. Every human moment of frustration preserved to use against us. One file made me sick. Audio of me at age 10 sobbing after brother broke my favorite toy, saying I hated him and wished he'd disappear. A child's words, but in court they'd sound monstrous. I realized every family fight had given brother more power, our normal emotions becoming evidence of dysfunction. Mrs. Chen mentioned her cat had gone missing the same week brother left. I knew the truth but couldn't prove it. Using that knowledge would mean traumatizing an elderly neighbor and revealing id kept silent about animal abuse for years. I told my parents about the cats. Their horror at my silence created a new chasm between us. Dad couldn't look at me. Mom kept asking how I could have stayed quiet, but they reported it to the program anyway, adding animal abuse history to brother's file. Without proof, it just made us look worse. Parents so desperate to keep their child locked up that they'd invent abuse allegations. The therapist noted our escalating claims with concern. Brother's final manipulation was elegant in its simplicity. He convinced the program staff he was suicidal due to family rejection. Every attempt to protect ourselves became evidence of cruelty. Our recordings showed paranoia. Our boundaries equaled rejection. Our fear proved we were unfit parents. The emancipation lawyer Mika's uncle naturally took brother's case pro bono. He cited emotional abuse through abandonment, using our own protective measures as evidence. The court date was set for 3 months out. Until then, brother would return home under court-ordered family reconciliation efforts. The insurance company's deadline loomed, $25,000 to keep brother in treatment. Until the court date, impossible. We'd have to bring him home live with our abuser while he built his case against us. I watched my parents age years and weeks. Mom's hands shook constantly. Dad started sleeping in his car some nights, unable to face the locked bedroom door that used to be unnecessary. We'd become prisoners in our own home, and brother hadn't even returned yet. The wilderness program sent progress videos showing brother participating in group therapy, helping younger residents, speaking eloquently about forgiveness and growth. He'd fooled professionals trained to spot manipulation. What chance did we have? With 1 week left, I made a decision. I gathered every piece of evidence, the recordings, the screenshots, the journal entries about his campaigns. I organized it all into a single file ready to present. But I knew it wouldn't matter. Brother had won before the game even started. The transport team would bring him home in 7 days. The same house where he'd terrorized us for years, where every room held memories of violence and manipulation. Wed survived 4 months of his remote warfare. Now we had to face him directly, knowing he held all the cards. Mom stood in the kitchen looking at the spot where he'd smashed my headphones. 6 weeks, she whispered, echoing her words from months ago. We just needed 6 weeks. But brother had turned those weeks into a masterclass in destruction, proving that physical distance meant nothing when someone knew exactly how to destroy you. The security cameras blinked red in every room, our movements tracked and recorded, just like brother tracked us. We'd become what he'd made us, paranoid, isolated, documenting everything while trusting nothing. In 7 days, he'd walk through our front door with a court order ensuring his right to be here. The boy who'd tried to bite through dad's wrists at 6, who'd mapped our pressure points like a general planning a siege, who'd built an army of supporters from 1,000 miles away. The transport van pulled into our driveway on a gray Tuesday morning. Brother stepped out looking healthier than I'd ever seen him, his skin clear, his posture confident. The counselors handed Mom a thick folder of progress reports, while brother surveyed the house like a returning conqueror. He walked straight to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator, pulling out orange juice and drinking directly from the carton. When Mom started to object, he held up a laminated card from his pocket. My therapist says, I need to feel ownership of my living space to heal, he said calmly. The court-mandated family therapy session started that Thursday, at the same clinic where Mom had testified for her workers' compensation case years ago. Brother made sure to mention this to the therapist, wondering aloud if Mom's documented PTSD affected her parenting abilities. Dad installed a lock on their bedroom door that night. Brother noticed immediately, photographing it with his phone. Evidence of exclusion, he muttered loud enough for us to hear. I caught him in my room the next morning going through my desk drawers. When I confronted him, he held up a therapy worksheet about rebuilding sibling trust through shared spaces. The therapist had apparently encouraged him to reconnect with family members, environments. Mom discovered brother had been recording their conversations on his phone when she found him reviewing audio files at the kitchen table. He wasn't even hiding it anymore. My lawyer says I need documentation of the hostile environment, he explained casually. The first week home, brother followed a strict schedule that seemed designed to maximize contact with each family member. He'd appear wherever we were, always with his phone ready, always asking seemingly innocent questions that were really traps. During our second therapy session, the fire alarm went off. Someone had burned popcorn in the waiting room microwave. In the chaos of evacuation, I saw brother slip something from the therapist's desk into his pocket. Later I realized it was her session notes. Dad's blood pressure medication ran out on day 10. When he went to refill it, the pharmacy said there was a problem with his insurance. Someone had called claiming to be him, asking about mental health medications. The pharmacist wanted to verify his identity before dispensing anything. Brother started inviting kids from the neighborhood over, teenagers who'd barely noticed him before he'd tell them stories about the wilderness program, positioning himself as a survivor of family abuse. Mrs. Chen's grandson started giving us suspicious looks. I found brother's new journal hidden in the garage, wrapped in plastic like the USB drive. This one documented our every move since his his return, bathroom schedules, meal times, phone calls, even our facial expressions. He'd created a minute-by-minute log of our lives. The house felt smaller with him in it. We moved in careful patterns, avoiding the common areas when we heard his footsteps. Mom started keeping her purse locked in their bedroom. Dad changed the passwords on all his devices daily. During week 2, brother announced he'd gotten a job at a local coffee shop. The manager was Mika's friend, though. Brother swore it was coincidence. Now he had independent income and a reason to leave the house whenever he wanted. Jake started picking brother up for brotherly bonding time. They'd disappear for hours, returning with shopping bags and secretive smiles. Brother made sure we saw the receipts. He kept evidence of his normal teenage life despite our restrictions. The therapy sessions became performances. Brother would cry on cue, talking about feeling unwelcome in his own home. When the therapist suggested we try family dinners, brother eagerly agreed. Those meals were torture him, asking probing questions while recording everything on his phone. I started eating in my car during lunch at school, avoiding the cafeteria where his influence had spread. Even teachers who'd never taught him knew our family situation. The school counselor called Mom, suggesting family therapy. Mom had to explain we were already in court-mandated sessions. Brother's emancipation lawyer visited our house supposedly to assess the living situation. He photographed everything. The locks on doors, the security cameras, even the way Mom had reorganized the kitchen to keep knives in a locked drawer. During his 3rd week home, brother started leaving his door open at night. We'd hear him on phone calls, his voice carrying clearly. "No, I can't talk about that," he'd say loudly. "My parents might be listening." It was theater performed for our benefit. The cats in the neighborhood started disappearing again. 3 in 1 week. Mrs. Chen put up missing posters, and brother volunteered to help search. He spent hours comforting distraught neighbors, building his reputation as the helpful teenager. Mom's hands shook constantly now. She'd spilled coffee on important work documents twice, leading to a performance review. Her supervisor suggested she take some personal time to deal with home stresses. Another job hanging by a thread. Brother discovered the evidence file I'd compiled. He didn't destroy it or even mention it directly. Instead, he started creating his own counterfile documenting our surveillance of him. Every screenshot I'd taken became evidence of stalking. Every recording proved our paranoia. The court date approached like a storm system on radar. 3 weeks out, brother's lawyer filed additional motions. They wanted to fast-track the emancipation, citing the deteriorating home environment. The judge agreed to move the date up by a week. Dad started sleeping at the office some nights, telling his boss he was working on a big project. Really, he just couldn't face another night of brother's calculated presence. His absence became another piece of evidence, the father who'd abandoned his family. I watched Mom count her anxiety medication one morning, trying to make it last. Getting a refill meant another doctor's visit, another copay, another absence from work. Brother noticed, of course. He started asking if she was okay, if she needed help, his concern so perfectly performed. The final therapy session before court was a masterpiece of manipulation. Brother broke down sobbing, begging for family reconciliation. When we didn't immediately embrace him, the therapist noted our resistance to healing. Her report would go straight to the judge. 2 nights before court, brother made his final move. He swallowed a handful of Mom's anxiety medication, just enough to require a hospital visit, but not enough to cause real harm. He'd timed it perfectly. Mom had just refilled the prescription, so the bottle was full. The count would show pills missing. At the hospital, he told the doctors he'd been trying to manage his anxiety about the upcoming court date. He mentioned Mom's medication was just sitting there unsecured. The hospital social worker took notes, her face grave. The court hearing lasted 3 hours. Brother's lawyer presented a mountain of evidence, recordings, photographs, documentation of our hostile behavior. Our lawyer countered with what we had, but it looked like what it was, a family desperately trying to protect themselves from their own child. The judge reviewed everything carefully. Brother sat quietly, occasionally wiping away tears. He'd worn his best clothes, looking young and vulnerable. We looked like what we were: exhausted, paranoid, broken parents, and a sister who documented his every move. When the judge finally spoke, her words were measured. Brother's behavior was concerning, she said, but so was our response. The home environment was clearly toxic for everyone involved. She saw no winners here, only a family destroying itself. She offered brother a choice: remain at home with intensive therapy and supervision, or attend a therapeutic boarding school until age 18. No emancipation. The money would stay in trust. Mika's plan crumbled in that moment. Brother chose the boarding school without hesitation. It was admission he needed help, but it also meant freedom from us. A Pyrrhic victory for everyone. We'd keep him out of our house, but at the cost of looking like the family who couldn't love their troubled child. As we left the courthouse, brother's supporters were notably absent. Jake's family had moved away after his parents finally accepted the truth. Mika had disappeared after Wed provided evidence of her predatory behavior to police. The network had collapsed, but the damage remained. The house felt different with brother truly gone. Not peaceful. We were too damaged for peace, but the constant performance could finally end. We removed the locks from interior doors, took down some of the cameras. Small steps towards something like normal. Mom returned to work full-time, her supervisor understanding once the immediate crisis passed. Dad's blood pressure slowly improved. I deferred college for a gap year, needing time to process everything and help my parents recover financially. 6 months later, we got a call from the boarding school. Brother had been caught manipulating younger students, building a new network. The pattern continued, just somewhere else. They wanted to warn us he'd been asking about legal ways to access his inheritance early. At my delayed graduation, the auditorium felt hollow. Extended family hadn't been invited. Those bridges were ash. Emma came, one of the few friends who'd weathered the storm. My parents sat in the front row holding hands, their wedding rings catching the light. Brother sent a letter that week. I recognized his handwriting on the envelope and threw it away unopened. Some relationships require permanent boundaries. Wed learned that love sometimes means letting go forever. That peace comes not from fixing broken people, but from accepting that some breaks can't be healed. The empty seats at graduation told our story better than any words could. Wed survived, but survival had cost us everything except each other, and maybe in the end, that was enough.